Hey everyone, welcome back to Go With the Flo. My name is Josiah Murda, and today I am joined by another very special guest to kind of keep up this thing in 2020 that we're doing, which is bring on more guests onto the show to interview them and hear their perspectives on more so on if they're influential people. We like to find out how they got to the spot where they're at today, and a lot of that is about their background. And today, I think this is a very special guest to me. His name is Dan Berei. Please tell me I said that correctly. I think I did.
It's close enough.
Close enough? Okay.
Close enough.
Okay, so
Okay.
his name, how do you say your last name, sorry?
It's Berei.
Berei. Okay, so Dan
Yeah.
Berei, sorry. So he's a retired U.S. Army soldier who served 6 years in the military and was a sergeant with the psychological operations. Was that at Fort Bragg?
Yep.
Perfect. So that's at Fort Bragg. And he's also deployed twice to the Philippines in support of Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines. And it's now the owner and founder of Combat Flags. And I believe that's based out of Davidson, North Carolina. Is that correct too?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Anyways, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to say this first off. Thank you for your service too. Like that's
Sure.
I did bring on two other guys in the military, and I never. It's an important thing to me to always thank you guys, because it's for some reason it really hits home with me. Yeah, man. So anyways, I just kind of want to explain to the audience here and to you kind of what I'm curious about talking about today. So and we did talk a little bit before this, just so everyone knows. But I want to get to more so about your background, because again, like I was saying before, off camera, I believe a person's background it's true. It does form who they are today. Yeah. And I know that you obviously spent quite a bit of time in the military, 6 years, like I said before. And that does shape a person, like majorly. Anyways, so let's just kind of start with this. I want to know a little bit more about, like I said, your background, but your childhood specifically. Who were you as a kid? What was your family life like? Your school life, everything like that. Just give us some context around there.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio, in a small town called Cuyahoga Falls. It's kind of midway between Canton, Ohio, and Cleveland.
Okay.
In the middle of nowhere, just a real small town.
Yep.
My graduating high school class, I think, had fewer than 200 people in it. So it was a pretty tight-knit community, and I love that it was small. I've got friends now who graduated with 1,500, 2,000 kids, and they don't know who they all are. But I loved how tight-knit we were.
Yep.
It was just me and my mom growing up. I think I had a fantastic childhood. My mom, I never wanted for anything. My grandparents were always very close and nearby. My grandfather retired out of the Air Force. He flew bombers in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Cool. So my introduction to the military started pretty much. It's like one of my first memories.
Jeez. Okay.
And I remember as a kid reading Stephen Ambrose, he was a prolific historian and writer. He died a number of years ago now, but he wrote a book called Into the Blue.
Okay.
And it was about B-24 pilots. And I remember that was my first real introduction to the war side of war.
Yeah.
Specifically, it not just the glorification that you would see on cartoons or whatever as a child.
Yeah.
But I remember reading that book at a pretty young age and talking with my grandfather about it, because he also flew bombers. That book took place over the European theater. He flew over the Pacific theater, but just being able, I remember I thought it was the coolest thing that I could talk to somebody about a book that I read about World War II who actually flew bombers during World War II. And he was my role model, my idol growing up, and he still is. He's 97 now, and he's slowing down, but he's still going.
He's still
strong.
Kicking, hey?
Yeah, still going strong.
That's awesome.
So I had a wonderful family life. I had always been interested in the military growing up. I was not the best student, admittedly. I always had better things to do, from ditching school in the winter to go skiing and snowboarding with my friends, to just not really caring about what they were teaching. It's not that I wasn't interested. I get
that. Yeah.
I just didn't see a tremendous amount of value in what was being taught. Granted, I was young and naive, and looking back, I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention. But I also knew from a young age as well that what I wanted to do was go in the military. So I joined up. I joined up in 2000, the summer after September 11th happened.
Right.
I was in between my junior and senior year of high school. So my mom had to release me to the government so that I could enlist.
Wait, like, sorry, let's just back up there. So release you meaning you were too young, so then she had to go and give her permission. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I was 17 when I enlisted.
Jeez, dude. Okay.
I enlisted, like I said, in between my junior and senior year of high school. I knew it's what I wanted to do. I had initially wanted to join the Air Force, actually. Wanted to be a pilot,
Okay.
like my grandfather, go figure.
Yep.
Terrible eyes at the time. I actually had LASIK last summer, and it was like the best thing I've
No,
ever
wait,
done.
my brother did that too, and his vision is supposedly it's better than 2015 vision, or is that what it's called? I'm pretty sure.
I'm
Yeah.
at 2015. It was, this is a bit of a sidebar. It was terrible for like 2 months after that.
Oh, really?
I had such bad eyes that I tripled the amount of laser time that you're supposed to have. But so I had extreme light sensitivity for a long time. But now, like, being able to travel and not have to deal with glasses or contacts is amazing.
Yeah,
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, wanted to join the Air Force to become a pilot. I couldn't because of my eyes. And I had read another Stephen Ambrose book, Band of Brothers. Everybody knows the series. I watched Band of Brothers and I was like, what? I can jump out of planes for the Army and get paid for it?
Yeah.
So I found a job within the Army that guaranteed me an airborne slot. I don't know what it's like now. At that time, there were only a couple that would guarantee you a slot into airborne school. And that was psychological operations. I tested high enough on my entrance tests that I could pick what I wanted.
Okay.
And back when I said I wasn't a good student, it's not because I lacked intelligence. It's just because I lacked drive and discipline at that time in my life. I've been an avid reader, so I enjoyed learning things that I wanted to learn about. So anyway, I tested high enough on the ASVAB is what they call it. I can't remember what it stands for anyway. That I picked psychological operations, which guaranteed me a slot into airborne school and 9-month language program after airborne school.
Yep.
And that's really just because I wanted to jump out of planes for the Army. That was the catalyst for it. I just wanted
anything to jump out of a plane, eh?
I got right over here. And I wanted the tradition of the airborne, and I got it.
Okay, so then, so 9 months in language school. So, actually, let me ask you this. I've always wondered about this. Do they select the language that you're going to learn for? Like, do they select it for you, or do you get to choose what you want to learn?
So you have to take a second test. So you take your ASVAB to get into the Army. Yeah. And then if you pick an MOS, which is military occupational specialty, which is your job, that requires language school, you have to go on and take a second test. It's I can't remember what the acronym is. It's been a long time. The Defense Battery. I can't remember. Okay. You can look it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, you pick, and basically I think it's a 2-hour test, and it's a made up language, and they teach you sentence structure, and then you get tested on sentence structure, and they test you on tense, and then you get tested on tense. And depending on how you score, at least back then, is how they would kind of like divert you into specific languages. By the time I had gotten into the language selection process, it was a year and a half or 2 years, I think, after September 11th. So they were like literally just putting people where they needed people, regardless of what their scores were. And where I got put was in Tagalog, which is Filipino.
Yep.
It's a dialect of Filipino.
Yep.
So that was my language.
Okay, so you're in that for 9 months. Because and the reason why I'm on this question, by the way, is I was going to ask you about it later, so we might as well talk about it right now. So you're on this for 9 months. Is that enough time for you to actually grasp a language, though? Because that's something else that's been in my head. I'm like, 9 months is pretty short, it seems like.
It would seem like it's short. It's not. So when you're in language school, you are in language school. And when you're in the military for language school, like you eat, breathe, sleep, do everything language school.
Really?
So the way it works out is for the first half of the class, like the first 4.5 months, you're on a night schedule. So we were going to night class. I think it ended at 9:30 or 10. And after the first week of class, we weren't allowed to speak English. Like we were full tilt.
Oh, really?
You're in. They would give, I remember, they would issue us our books, right?
Yeah.
Ahead of the class. And they gave us like this palette of like flashcards. And I was thinking, no, I've been to school before. We're never going to use those. We'd use those by the halfway point. And like, you would just like sit there. We would drill. We were a small class. There were 6 of us in my class.
Yeah.
And we would sit there before class or after class, and we would just drill each other on flashcards, on sentence structure, on tense, on everything. And when you graduate language school, in order to graduate, you have to go take another test called the D Lab.
Okay.
And that tests your proficiency within the language. And I think it's a 0 to a 3 rating. So you're either a 0, a 0 plus, a 1 plus, a 2, a 2 plus, up to
Okay.
3.
Yeah.
With 3 being fluent.
Yeah.
When I tested, and you have to test every year or two after language school. When I tested out of language school, I tested at a 2 plus. Like I got to the point where I was dreaming in Filipino and not English.
Like, is that legit? Like you mean it when you say it like that too?
Like I was legitimately having dreams in another language. And when I woke, I remember actually the first night that happened. When I woke up, like I knew that I had it.
Interesting. I took German when I was in. I think I told you about this before, but just kind of give you a little bit more context. I was homeschooled from grades 7 to 12. So during that time, I was able to learn German, but I mean, it was not nearly like that. It was more. Yeah. I think it was once a week on Thursday nights for 3 hours though, and it was all like you can earn credits through it and everything like that, but. Mm-hmm. It was, I remember that happening to me too. It wasn't a full dream in German, but it was, what happened? I've had it a few times where like in the dream, I'll have a conversation with someone, but then they'll just start speaking German for some reason, and then another, like, I don't know how, but I could just understand them. And that was something that was interesting to me. And I felt like I could speak better and understand better in my dreams. That was a weird thing to me too. Because in real life, maybe it wasn't the same for you, but I had a harder time understanding than speaking it. Okay. And most people I found it was the opposite. But in my dreams, that's why I liked it. Because in my dream, I was able to do both and whatever. So it's interesting that you had that same thing. Okay, so what happens if you don't graduate from language school?
So at the halfway point, you're put through like an initial test, like an assessment by your instructor, and if you're not doing well, they either recycle you, so they put you back to the beginning of the incoming class, or they change your language to something easier. So we had one guy who was rolled out of our class, and I think he was put into Spanish after that.
Oh, okay. And sorry, keep going. Okay, so you were saying in the beginning though, they did this test that you said it was a made-up language.
Yeah, and it's like. I have no idea. Like, I don't remember the specifics. It's a made up language that the government concocted. And it's basically, it teaches you, so it's a made up foreign language, but it's based on the English language. So it's all about like sentence structure and where nouns fall within relation to pronouns and things like that.
Okay. That's how they do it. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. So let's move on to now. Let's not till now, but quite a few years back, you said, I believe I looked at your LinkedIn and said that you graduated with a international public relations degree. I believe I think that's what it was. Why that?
Yeah. So my job in the Army was psychological operations, which the way I put it now is it's like public relations, but with a dark and seedy twist to it. Okay. So the objective within psychological operations, if you're doing strategic psyop, is what we call it for short, is basically to influence, to persuade, to change, and to influence the minds of a specific society or a specific subset of a society or population. So like when I deployed, I deployed with both deployments to the Southern Philippines with an ODA, a Special Forces team. And in most of the areas we were going, like we were doing counterinsurgency work, like trying to help the armed forces of the Philippines, the AFP, push deeper into these areas, basically to rout out the bad guys. Okay. And the way that we did that is, one, we would train their forces. We would train the Filipinos on good practices on like small unit tactics and like close quarters combat, UB, and just other things, first aid and whatnot. Yep. But we would also go with them into these villages, these barangays, and we would provide medical assistance. And through that medical assistance, for instance, I would be out just talking with people. I wouldn't be the one actually doing the procedures. Yeah. Okay. I would be out among the people, just like rubbing elbows and talking, basically, just trying to learn what I could, because we would then take what we learned. Yeah. And we could we would evaluate it and analyze it in a way that we could assess it to understand how we can better help them to better help us, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, no,
So
that
if you
does.
scratch our back, we'll scratch yours.
And that kind of seems like how the culture works, though. Like, more so over there, it's like if you scratch my back, then I'll scratch yours. In the West, though, it's not so much like that. Would you agree?
In pockets, I would agree.
Okay, that's okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
oh, keep going.
yeah. So that is kind of like the Uber Cliff Notes version of PSYOP.
Okay,
When I
yeah,
made
yeah.
the choice to get, when I made the choice to get out of the army, I knew I wanted to go to college. I had taken my first 2 years essentially online, just getting the electives and rather the general study stuff out of the way. And when I was trying to assess what degrees I wanted, I looked at where my skills would transfer. And I found public relations to be a pretty close tie to what I was already doing.
Hmm.
And I had a good understanding and I knew I was good at it. So that's how I got into public relations.
And that's a what was that? A 3-4 year degree?
It's a 4 year, it's
4 year.
a bachelor's degree.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so, and what university was that from?
That was from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Oh, okay. And this was around what time? So, sorry, you were out of the military by this time?
Yeah, I was out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
So
do
that
know.
was I graduated in 2012. I got out of the army in 2010.
Oh, okay. Does that help with like having a degree in that? Does it help with running combat flags at all too? With like positioning yourself? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I kind of assume so, but okay. Well, but we'll get
Yeah.
into that right away as
We
well.
can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just cover a few more basics here. Okay, because you did mention that. I mean, you joined when you were 17. Your mom had to release you to the government, which is crazy to me already. But so 2 months before that was, I think you said it was about 2 months, was 9/11.
No, it was the following summer. So
Oh.
I joined the summer after September 11th happened.
Oh, okay. Okay. So summer after.
Actually, almost 2 years after. I was a freshman when that happened. So I joined when I was a junior. So it was 2 years after.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Not 2 months, 2 years. Yes. So, okay, so did 9/11, I'm assuming you're 17, so you would have been 15 at the time 9/11 happened, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
What was the impact on you personally with 9/11? Did it also almost solidify your decision to go into the military, or was your decision already solidified before that?
It was solidified before then.
Okay.
However, what happened on September 11th changed my reasoning. It gave me more of a purpose and more of a mission behind it.
Oh, okay.
Because at that point, up until that point, like we had been Desert Storm. I was really too young to remember that. We had done some things in Bosnia and Kosovo, but even then, like that didn't get widespread media coverage that I remember, at least.
Yeah.
Like Iraq and Afghanistan and OEF and OIF and all the subsequent operations did. So I was mainly initially, like, my desire to join the service was out of a duty to my country. When September 11th happened, it amplified that, and it was more about, I'm not going to say vengeance, but there was more drive and purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, I was way too young to. I was 3 years old when that happened. So not to make you feel old or anything. I know you're still young, but
I said it the other day when we talked. You're just a baby.
I am a baby. I'm only 21. I'm turning 22 next month though, in April.
Yeah, well, happy birthday.
Thank you, man. Okay, so 9/11 didn't, or it did have, obviously it did have a major impact on you, but it didn't solidify your decision because it was already made before that, which I find interesting, but. From the sounds of it, that decision before 9/11 happened came from more so because you said your grandfather was in the military as a bomber. So that's why I like covering the background, because it's like as much research as you can do on a person, it's like, because I thought 9/11, from the sounds of it, 9/11 was the thing that made you decide to go into the military, but you had that way beforehand.
Yeah.
So like and here's something else that I find interesting too, is you said you didn't grow up with a dad either.
Right.
So was your grandfather a bigger role model in your life then because of that, or no?
Oh yeah. I think so. Like, he taught me things that I do every day. When I read a ruler or I'm hanging a shelf or a picture in my house, he's the one who showed me how to do all of that. And I always, regardless of what I'm doing, like, so my wife and I, and we have a 2-year-old, we just moved into a new home maybe a month and a half ago now.
Yep.
And God knows how many things I've hung up. I mean, you can just see
Yeah,
behind me.
yeah.
Like,
I love the background, by the way.
yeah, thank you. But everything that I have hung with him in mind.
Oh,
Whether
really?
it's yeah,
How do you mean with him in mind?
just because so I go back to the lessons that he taught me about like anchoring things into the wall and making sure they're level and how to measure on center, like just the very tactical steps of hanging a picture like I've got back here.
Yeah.
Like that memory is etched into my mind forever. And every time I hang a picture like this, I go back to that moment.
Oh, that's okay. So here's something that I maybe have thought about it, maybe haven't. If your grandfather was in your life, do you think you still would have gone to the military?
I don't know, man.
Huh.
I have no idea. I would like to think that like that sense of duty is just within some people.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that I've got that, but I'm sure that hearing his stories, and actually we can talk about that in a little bit too, just the fact that he never really shared any stories. He shared like very high level stories.
High level meaning like it's not very detailed?
They were very, like, looking back after having been in the military myself, they were very topical. They were almost like what one would expect from a movie or something like that. Not like, when I say from a movie, I just mean like he would gloss over the facts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It wasn't until I got back from my first deployment, and I remember this moment quite vividly, that he really started to share things with me. And my mom and my grandma told me one day a couple years ago that they were sitting outside of a room while he was talking, and neither of them had ever heard him tell any of the stories that he told me. So I think having that shared experience, that pseudo shared experience, helped him open up a little bit.
Okay.
And feel more comfortable talking with someone who had like been through something not even close to similar, but yet similar in its own way.
And is the I read some stat, like it was a long time ago, so I'm gonna butcher it a little bit here, but in World War II, the amount of days you see that they saw combat was a lot less than the I don't want to say modern combat field now because that sounds weird, but essentially that's what it is. Like it's I read that the average soldier now sees about 200 plus days of combat versus back then, which was like, I think it was like 15 or 20 days of combat. Is that what do you think of that?
I don't know what stat you're referencing.
Okay, yeah.
It seems that conflict, that war versus the wars that we've been in for the past 20 years almost at this point, are very different. And the way that the leadership and the government handled the military back then was also widely different than it is now. So you've got guys now who have, depending on what they're doing, like they're on constant rotations. They're on deployment, they come home for a period of time, and then they're back. Back then, okay. So he was a pilot, so they were on a by mission deployment essentially.
Yep.
They had to fly 25 missions, and when they hit that 25th one, they were done. They would fly home.
Okay.
Or they demob or whatever. The stat for pilots specifically is outrageous. It was pretty much a death sentence if you went up in an aircraft to bomb another country during World War II.
Really?
Because you figure they didn't have smart bombs then. They were all dumb bombs. They were dropped. It was quantity over quality at that point because of what they had. And they would go up in entire air wings, just hundreds of planes in formation.
Yeah. And
the bad guys are shooting flak up in the air, which is basically, we'll just call it like a giant shotgun shell that's set to go off at a certain altitude.
Yep.
And you get hit with flak and it takes out an engine. That's a crew of 9 or 10 guys pretty much dead. Like their fate has been sealed.
Jeez.
And while the pilots may have had more time in between runs, they were definitely it was like hell on earth up there for them, I'm sure.
And so I'm assuming your grandpa, I do know, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit later on too, about stop soldier suicide, but I'm assuming your grandpa, after all that, I'm not going to say he had PTSD because I don't know, but I'm assuming he probably had something along those lines. Like if you're in combat for that long and you're stressed out that much, it would obviously translate to your civilian life. So I'm assuming you guys were able to relate with that on some level as well too.
A little bit, but like I said, he retired after 30 years in the Air Force, active duty. He was, there's something to be said for staying in that environment after you've been through something that hellacious.
Yeah.
It's like it's insulating almost.
That's no, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's move on here. Just so because I know I told you about an hour and I could ask a lot more questions, but we'll
Hey,
just kind of keep.
I'm not on. I've got nothing but time tonight.
You're on
So
quarantine. You're good.
we keep this rolling.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so let's talk about the Philippines then.
Yeah.
So you deploy twice there.
Yep.
What do those missions look like? Because I couldn't find anything on it, like on your specific deployment. So I would like to learn a little bit more about your role there, what it looked like, just your everyday life, anything you want to share about it.
Yeah. So it is. Those deployments were in support of Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines, which it was a very, very small contingent of U.S. forces doing counterinsurgency work, like I said, with the Filipinos. So we kind of had like a main contingency, like a small base. I saw that base twice, I think, because both times when I deployed, when I landed, I was put on an unmarked aircraft and I was flown to where I was going.
Okay.
And I worked with special forces guys. I'm not special forces.
Okay.
I always feel like I need to clarify that.
Yep.
I was attached to them as a force multiplier, is what they called us.
Okay.
And basically, I would go with them as they were looking to train the host nation armed forces. So the Filipinos, whether it was the Army or Marines, were our two primary services that we worked with.
Okay.
I would go with them to do that and teach them my skills as well. And then we go out into the population to work with the civilians. They would do their thing and I would do my thing. And at the end of that mission, we would bring it all back together and devise a plan or an action plan for the next time we were there, or a reverse action plan, or what we would do moving ahead.
Okay.
And largely we were there helping to build and reinforce a positive reputation for the Filipino Army. So if you think about the way the Philippines is kind of divided, it's an archipelago. There's 1,000 some odd islands that make up the nation of the Philippines.
Okay.
You've got Luzon and at the northernmost point, you've got Visayas right in the middle, and then you've got Mindanao. And Mindanao is where I was, and there is a large push, even today, from what I understand, to have that to become an autonomous Muslim state. They kind of want to detach themselves from the main government of the Philippines, and they want to be self-governed under Islamic law. Okay. So there was, for instance, when ISIS was real big a couple of years ago, there was actually, this made the news, which I was surprised to see. There's a town in the northern part of Mindanao called Marawi. Oh yeah. And I've seen combat footage of that. Yeah. ISIS got in there and they took over, and I'd been there, a dozen times doing stuff. No way. And then the Philippine Army, Marines, and Air Force just laid waste to that city to get them out of there. Like there's that strong of a push, and the terrorist organizations, whatever you want to call them, to be politically correct today in 2020. Yeah.
By the way, you don't need to be just so you're aware, you don't need to be politically correct on this show, just so you know. So you say whatever you need to say.
They've got such a strong foothold that they were able to gain substantial ground, and they held that city for a long time. But if you go back in history to get, the Philippines in general, I'm not going to preach the history. One, I'm not that well read up on it anymore. And two, it would probably bore the daylights out of you. But they've had a big tumultuous history with people coming in and conquering and seizing and raping and pillaging and then leaving and then getting conquered and pillaged and blah, 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 all over again. And it's no different on Mindanao. They've got some of the earlier groups that ended up forming Al-Qaeda formed in the southern Philippines. So it's been a hotbed for terrorist activity for a long time. When I talk to my friends and my family and people who don't know, I often refer to it as the minor leagues of terrorism, because the way it was I was there is the bad guys would come in from all over the world and they would train and they would become proficient in their tactics and their techniques. Okay. And when they had mastered them there, that's when they would move up to the Middle East.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's almost like the way you described it too it seems accurate then, is it's a like the little leagues or whatever. Okay, I see that now. Okay, keep going.
Yep. Anyway, so that's kind of like the overarching mission. We were there to advise and assist the Filipino Army, Filipino military, and help to build their reputation in these areas that for one reason or another they were not welcome. And as part of that reputation building, we were also trying to get further and further into these areas so that we could route out the bad guys. And by route out, I don't mean go in there and take action. Americans are not engaging in active combat in the Philippines. The Filipinos do that.
So you train the Filipinos to go push out ISIS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or at that time, it was the groups we were mainly working against was ASG, the Abu Sayyaf group, and the MILF, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, which we always had a great time with.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the overarching mission for both my deployments.
Okay.
The day to day, it varied. Most days we would be out like among the population in these far flung areas, and most of the places we went, like I was the first white person these people had seen.
Oh, really?
On TV or in real life. Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
So why is that though? I assume they would have seen someone by it. Like, is the internet controlled there?
So this was 2007 and 2008. Internet looked a lot different back then.
Oh, that's true.
Now.
Yeah.
Like we were still using, like we were on Nokia phones, like the big rubber buttons, and you had to stick a SIM chip in it.
Yeah.
Internet wasn't around, and even for us, like as Americans, our internet was pretty shitty where we were at it.
Yeah.
So it was a different point of connectedness back then.
Huh.
So
okay.
Even to the point of like some of these people didn't have a radio or a television. They were just like they were literally surviving day to day. And then you have some bad guy come in and say, I'm gonna shoot your village up.
Yeah.
If you don't give us access to your crops, that by the way, we're taking all of those now, and you don't pay us what little money you have, we're gonna kill, your daughter, your wife, whatever. And then at that point, that's where they would get their foothold, not out of the kindness of their own hearts, but out of fear and threats.
So did the population not support, but was there a portion of the population that supported the ISIS, or not ISIS movement, sorry, the MILF movement, if you want to call it that?
MILF. Yeah, I think there was.
Like,
but you gotta remember too. So like psychological operations, it's not propaganda, but it's close.
Yeah.
There's like, I'm not going to say this to be funny. There's like actual shades of gray within proactive communications versus propaganda, and it's like 3 degrees of separation. It's very easy to cross over that line.
Interesting.
So what they were getting was propaganda from the bad guys, and we would come in and we would communicate with them either directly from my mouth or through an interpreter, depending on what dialect was being spoken in the area. And we would try and like give them the truth, but there's always tension between the truth and what one wants to believe.
Yeah.
And depending on how well you're educated, most of these people had never seen the inside of a classroom. They couldn't read. They believed what they knew. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that they were brought up. So we were in there trying to help change their perceptions.
Jeez. It's interesting too, because from my perspective, it's or for most people's perspectives, probably they don't hear those types of stories. They hear more stuff that's going on in the Middle East, if anything.
Yeah.
But like, and that's something that I've paid attention to over the past few months. Actually, are the amount of missions that actually go on around the world that the U.S. is involved in. It's actually outrageous. Like, there's a lot that's going on. But
it wasn't called the Global War on Terror for
well, yeah. But it's cool because like when I was younger, I always saw the just the Middle East stuff, because actually I should say this to you too. Where my interest in the military comes from is I wanted to go in the military my whole life until I was about, I think I was 18, 19. I was thinking about doing or it was either the military, or in Canada it's CSIS, which is the like our CIA, if you will. Okay. Because I learned how to program and everything like that, do like coding and all that. So I was wanting to go into CSIS or the military with those skills, but then realized like it's something I would still do, but it's not if I need to. But yeah, that's where my real interest comes from, because I studied the military for a
Yeah.
while. And that, yeah, anyways, that's where the connection comes. Like that's where I get
Yeah,
my
I get
interest
it,
from.
man. I get it.
Anyways, so what did you personally take away from the deployments in the Philippines? Like, are there any lessons you learned, or do you see life differently? Like your perspective, did it change any, or like how did it impact you personally after the two deployments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So looking back, having, I was what, 20, we'll call it having a decade of separation of distance between my life then versus my life
Yeah.
now. I wish I would have had the forethought to almost like journal every day, but like
Mm-hmm.
just take notes of what was going on, because you get so wrapped up in the day to day and what's like what you're doing right then.
Yeah.
It's a job. I know it's like, to the outside, it made it seem odd to have a military deployment as a job, but you're there to do a job. And I didn't really learn the lessons that I had actually learned until a couple years after I got out.
Okay.
Um, because like I said, like you're there, you're doing your thing, you're anxious to get home back to your family. You get
Mm-hmm.
home, you go right back into a training cycle. You gear up to go right back over, and then you do it again. And when I did it again, I had decided to get out in between my first and second deployment. Where was it after? I can't remember. Anyway,
Okay.
but looking back on it, like there's a couple things that I learned. I didn't realize I learned, but I learned
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
and one is just a scope for the enormity of life and
Mm-hmm.
how precious it is. And to understand that like human beings are not invincible in any way,
Yeah.
but also that, and something I use in my corporate job now, is that what we think matters doesn't really matter. Like there are people who are in horrible situations across the world
Yeah.
who would do anything to have the quote unquote problems that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep that perspective, you'll like, we can make it through anything. Just
Yeah.
having the will to drive on and like put your head down and go forward is one thing that I learned about how, like I said, how precious life is, but
Yeah.
also how people can persevere.
You mentioned journaling too. See, I find that interesting as well because I'm a very, I don't want to say big advocate, but I do really believe in actually, let me ask you this: do you follow Gary Vaynerchuk on Instagram? Okay, yeah. So what he says is the whole like documenting versus creating,
Mm-hmm.
and like documenting your journey and your process of your life now, and I've been paying attention to that for the last, I'd probably say 3 to 4 months, like heavily, and figuring out why it works. And to give you some context as well, so like I'm a marketer, I own my own agency, so it's always been and coming from a programming side of things too, like I've always asked the question like, why does this happen and how does this happen? And so because of that, I then take that into, when he said that, I'm just like, why does that work so well? And like, because there's vloggers, there like documentaries work well and everything, reality TV, like all that stuff works. And it's interesting because one of the things that they all have in common too is that it sounds so cliche, but I don't know how else to say it. It's sharing your truth, because that's the only unique thing left in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what brought me to you and everything, and brings me to different types of people on the internet, is your story and what you're doing. If you can document that, that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Like everything else has been tried, but the thing that you're doing hasn't been.
Yeah.
So like that's why I find it interesting, because when you said journaling, that's what I think of automatically is, oh, he wanted to document even back then.
Yeah. I honest to God, like I wish so much that I could have a stack of books that I could flip through, I could page through today about what I was like, what my frame of mind was, what I was going through, like what I was thinking and seeing and feeling, hearing, because like you get glimpses back into the past, but they're just glimpses and they've been shaped by the present and the future. So they're continually being reshaped. And I wish that I could go back and just relive some of that to help me better understand like why I'm thinking a certain way now, or just to give me a new perspective on something I'd like to do.
Do you journal
Even
now?
I have.
Okay.
I bought this at the beginning of the year. It's this 5-year journal. There's
Oh,
prompts every day,
jeez.
and basically, so I'm doing this, but I'm not actually sitting down. But every day there's a prompt. Like the prompt for June 11th is going to be somewhere I wish I was, and
Mm,
then got a couple lines for each
okay.
for
Yeah.
each of the next 5 years. And this is cool to me. One, so I can look back, but
Yeah.
two, so we have a son now. If we have another child, that they can look back at some point in their lives and be like, "This is what Dad was doing
That's awesome.
on March 23rd,
Yeah.
2020,
Yeah.
while he was quarantined."
Quarantine life had
Yep.
nothing else better to do than writing his journal.
But
Okay.
part of the psyop and PR thing is I minored in journalism as well, so like I have an
Oh.
avid passion for writing. I write heavily, well, not as heavily in my current job as I did in my previous role.
Yeah.
Um, I love writing. I've got a friend who's written a couple books, and he shared on a podcast that he also hosts. I haven't been on it yet. He's been trying to get me on it, but life has been ridiculous for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
This mind map exercise, where basically it kind of reminds me of what they're doing right now with the coronavirus, actually, where like if you get infected, like you are the epicenter, and then they start to draw off branches
Yeah.
and identify your circle. But the
Yeah.
mind map is you start with the idea of I don't know, like why I joined the service, and then you branch off and you just start finding different topics to write about. So I did that last week, and I would love nothing more, because I think I do have. I'm not an egotistical guy, and I don't like saying this out loud, but like I think I've got a unique enough experience and perspective on things that I've got some value outside of what I do with combat flags, but using combat flags as a leverage to share that with people.
See, I don't think that's egotistical. I think that's just self-awareness. Like it's okay if you know that you're good at something too. Like
Yeah.
Have you heard of the probably haven't, but the rapper Russ is his name. So he his big thing is everyone calls him an asshole, and very egotistical, stuff like that. But he says he's just in that industry, though. Like I've studied that too a little bit and how that works. But supposedly in that industry, if you go against the industry, they will not put you on anywhere, like radio stations or anything like that. And so his whole thing is he built up a fan base himself, and he knew he was able to bring out fans without a record label and stuff. And because of that, he had a chip on his shoulder. And so when he went to a record label, he's like, I don't need you. I have leverage. And so he was able to get the deal he wanted with the record label. But his whole thing is he's like, that wouldn't have happened if he didn't deploy self-awareness against himself and understand who he actually was. Because like he knew who he was, and people hated that, because he would his true self. He's like, I'm very confident. He can come across cocky, stuff like that, but he's like, that came from a place of understanding who I actually was.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyways, I just kind of want to say that, like, it's, even though it's not, I don't think it's egotistical. Yeah, no, it's just you understand who you are.
Maybe if we want to dig into this just a smidge more, I think what might be underlying that statement is that there's kind of a joke, right? Like, Navy SEALs. There's a meme and a joke that's kind of going around, like the Navy SEAL starter pack. Like you get out of the Navy, and you're a SEAL. You get your own hair care product line.
Yeah.
You go on TV and you write a book.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like Jocko, if you know Jocko Willink.
Yep.
I love Jocko. Like I'm a diehard Jocko fan, but he provides so much value outside of telling war stories to me.
Yeah.
And to, I think, society at large would benefit greatly from what he has to offer.
Agreed.
But he's done a really good job. And this is kind of like the vein that I want to get into through combat flags, and to use that platform that I've built, is to share my life lessons, not like share war stories. I don't have any cool war stories. Like that's not what I care about sharing. And most people like love it. Like it's sexy. It's mysterious.
It's the trend almost.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I know we'll talk about combat flags in a bit, but when I start to look at like why I started combat flags and like what really drew me to it, even though I didn't know I was getting drawn into an unknown thing at the time, like that is unique. When I tell people about that, they connect with it and they want to know more about it. And I think that as far as journaling and like looking back on where I was when I was deployed, all of that helped me get up to this point.
Yep.
I'd love to be able to share that with people.
So yeah, by the way, side note, I like how deep you can get. A lot of people, something that I was talking to my dad about it, I think last night. I love having deeper conversations with people. And you mentioned that on the phone too, 2 days ago or 3 days ago when I gave you the call. You're like, I like to get deeper. And that's why I'm kind of pushing for a little bit more. Like, by the way, I don't want to overstep my boundary. Like it's, but
I'll deflect if you get too
perfect. Thank you. just do that. Okay. So let's get to combat flags though.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, I mean, you kind of covered this, but I'm going to ask it again just so you can give us a little bit more context if you want to say anything else about it. Can you explain the transition from military life to civilian life? And I know there's some people are like you're more actually you even said, I think too, when you got out of the military you weren't accountable to anyone else but yourself now. Right. So that would be something that's big. Are there any other things like that you found just what was it like?
So this will actually be a perfect segue into combat flags. So I got out of the military and actually my last day in the Army was July 4th, which is, Independence Day here in the States, which is fitting because I thought it was my Independence Day. So I got out of the military in July 4th, 2009. And like, I had a checklist in my head. I had a roadmap. My then fiance, like we were getting more serious during my second employment. I got home, we got engaged. She's my wife now. We've been married for 10 years. Like I had this checklist in my head of things I thought I was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Get out of the Army, go to school, get a job, like, and build your career that way. Mm-hmm. And I did it, man. Like I got out, I got to school, I went to college, I graduated with a 3.9 GPA. Ooh. Like completely crushed it when I went back to high school, when I like barely passed. It was almost comical to me, but I graduated high school. I graduated college. Mm-hmm. I had a couple job offers right out of college. One was in Washington, D.C. with a firm that I thought would have been awesome to have worked for, but the cost of living out there was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I took an internship at a media relations agency in Charlotte, and I turned that into my first like real job out of college. Mm-hmm. A couple months into the internship, I did my thing there, and I succeeded there, and I was there for 2 years, and it was an agency, right? So like 2 years of agency time is like 6 years of corporate time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they churn and burn through people, and I was churned and burned through at the end of the 2 years. So I then moved on to a corporate role where I'm at today, and I thought I was doing the right thing, but like you said, when I got to college, when I started college, I started to notice that things were a little amiss with me, like mentally. And when I got out of the military, just to go back a little bit farther, like I literally packed it up. Like one day I was in uniform. The next day I packed it in a box and I packed it away. I put all of my stuff in a box and put it in the attic. Everything up here, packed in a box and tucked into a dark little corner somewhere in my head, and thought, okay, that part of my life is over. This is my new path. That doesn't matter anymore. And this is what is now. Yeah. Like you get really good at compartmentalizing things in the military.
Yeah.
And I did that like to the T. So I started school, and almost immediately, like I really started to miss the connection to people who were like me.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that I think most people don't realize, is that the guys who are like you and that you serve with are not just your friends. Like they're your buddies because you hang out every day and you go shoot stuff and you run and you exercise together. And you're with each other all the time. But they truly become family.
Yeah.
They know more about you than anybody else. And when I got out and I left the military, like I left that behind, right? Like that all got tucked away in a dark little corner somewhere.
You didn't even keep in contact with them after?
I kept in contact with a couple.
Okay.
Like there's a couple guys, like my best friend today, we basically went through the Army together. He's a police officer in Charlotte.
Awesome.
He and I have been like butt buddies since the beginning of time. It feels like
yeah.
We've known each other half our lives now. There's a couple other guys who I've kept in touch with, and we kind of come and go throughout each other's lives now, but largely like I cut that out of my life. I thought like, all right, I'm literally like, I'm done with this. That was then, this is now.
Yep.
So I got into school when like I was task oriented. I cared about my grades and I cared about studying. I was married by the time I was through with my second semester of college. So like that was my life. But like you said, I also learned that I wasn't accountable to really anybody but myself. And that was weird. I didn't have anybody that I was accountable to. There was nobody accountable to me.
Yep.
And it was the monotony of college was not what I thought it would be. I love school. Like I could spend my entire life in school, but not having a higher purpose. I didn't know this at the time, was slowly eating me alive. Not having a mission or something bigger than myself to work for, to strive for.
Yeah.
It was bad for my mental health.
Yeah.
Because in the military, like you're looking out for, like I was in E5, I had a couple people underneath me. Like you're looking out for your guys, you're looking out for your buddies. When you're in college, you are looking out for you, and that's about it.
It's true. Yeah.
And then graduated college, just got that job at the agency, and there I learned that people don't care about you. Like I just said, in the military, like you care about your people and they care about you, and they reciprocate that. And that at this particular job, man, they were chewing people up and spitting them out, just shitting all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't cool with that. And I thought that when I got to the corporate environment, it would change. I would say it's changed in the sense that it's done with more political correctness than it was at the agency due to the size of the organization. But generally, like there's people who I've got friends at work, and they're truly good friends. Like they will be lifetime friends.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But they are of a similar mindset of like, this is going to sound terrible. And if anybody from work listens to this, like this is merely a means to an end. This facilitates my life, my family's life.
Yep.
I'm here and I'm going to give it my 100% while I'm here, but I'm not here to play the game and make friends.
Yeah.
We made friends because we were like, we're good people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I ended up founding Combat Flags because I had come to a startling realization one day on a conference call that I missed that purpose to something bigger than myself. I've missed that mission to something other than myself and making money for investors. And when I came to that realization, like it was like just to use a really bad movie analogy, like when somebody has that moment of clarity and it's like a rubber band and they automatically, like you see all these periods in time that lead up to that moment. Like I had that moment. Yeah. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew that like, that was it. Like what I'm missing in life is serving something bigger than myself. And that's how generally like how Combat Flags started. So on another conference call, like that's when I had the idea for what would eventually become like the original Combat Flag.
Yeah. And those are made, by the way, just so people are aware, those are made with soldiers' fatigues, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that... What's that?
Do you want me to get into that now, or do you have any questions about the word vomit I just let out?
Oh, well, let's get into that now. Like we're going to wrap right back around though, because I just want people to be aware of like how did, because you were saying you're on the conference call and everything.
Yeah.
And I believe you also said in I read it somewhere where you said, it's on your website. You said you looked up at something, and that's when the idea came.
I don't, if that works still. I was on a conference call, like bored out of my mind in my cube, in our cube farms. And they give out in the States on the 4th of July, they give out like little 4x6-inch yard flags. They're just real small little American flags with like a wooden stick usually. And I had taken one and I had taped it up to the corner of my desk.
Yeah.
And I'd looked at this thing like a million times before, probably. For some reason, during this particular conference call at this particular time on this particular day, I looked up and the idea, like the concept for the combat flag for this, it struck me like a bolt of lightning. I had been kind of toying around with how I could make service real for the average citizen, give them something tangible.
Yep.
And I don't know what it was about that moment in time, but I looked up, saw that flag, and like, what's more American than an American flag? And what's more American than making that flag out of the fabric that people wear to defend that flag?
Yeah.
So that was the general idea. And I knew that in order to make it real, like I would need to include something like this, which is a card. So if you get a flag, an original combat flag, you get a card with a short story that tells you about the person who wore the material to make the flag.
Yeah.
Like, so you know that like And at the time, like we were still going through like general surges and whatnot in the news, and you were just hearing like 3,000 troops deployed. Like that's great, but I want to know about that one that I see on the news right there.
Mm-hmm.
And with
Yeah.
the combat flags, with the originals, you can learn about Dakota and
Mm-hmm.
what Dakota service looked like to the country.
And all these guys send you their fatigues like
Yeah.
voluntarily, or do you have to reach out to some of them as well, or it's all just voluntarily?
Now it's all
That's
voluntary.
awesome.
When I first started, I like the very first combat flags. So that day I had the conference call, and I also knew through combat flags that higher purpose I wanted to serve
Yeah.
was this veteran and military suicide epidemic, which is running rampant. It's still active today. At that point in time, they were saying 22 veterans and one active duty service member committed suicide every day.
Mm.
The VA's toyed around with the numbers a little bit. It's down to 20 right now.
Okay.
So 20 vets a day and one active duty service member. And like, I'm not a mental health professional.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy who figured out how to make something work.
Yeah.
And at that point, I committed to supporting a nonprofit called Stop Soldier Suicide. So from the original combat flag, for instance, and this is the only product I had for almost a year on the store.
Oh, really?
I donate 50% of the profit from the original combat flag to Stop Soldier Suicide.
That's awesome.
And now everything else that you see on the store, I donate 10%.
Yeah.
So that was the mission. Like I wanted to help enable, a lot like in the Army, like I wanted to be a force multiplier for the guys who were out on the front lines doing the good work. And after oodles of research, I found Stop Soldier Suicide, and I've been committed to them for almost 4 years now, and they've been fantastic partners.
I want to talk more about Stop Soldier Suicide right away here. But there's one thing I want to ask before that. So you said when you came up with the idea for the combat flag, the original combat flag, that is, it kind of hit you like a bolt of lightning. But then you said something which was, I'm gonna mess it up a little bit here, but essentially everything that you thought about before, like that happened in the past, just started coming to you almost, and like I think of it as it's almost clicking in your head, like, okay, this experience now.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that. Like it just clicks in your head differently.
Yeah.
And that's something that happened to me too. In actually, that was only 3 months ago. It began this year. Is I was lacking. That's something I noticed too. I was lacking purpose. I was doing my thing. I was happy doing it, but at the same time, I wasn't. And it's like, that's what you kind of want to do, but you don't know the overall purpose of why you're doing it. And so in January, that's what happened for me. Like, and that's why I found that interesting that you said that. Is it just started, everything in the past just started like clicking almost. And that's what happened to me. And now it's like, I understand why I'm doing everything. I understand like every little thing, why I'm doing the podcast, why I'm doing my business, why I'm connecting with certain people, why, like, it's just everything. I understand the why now. So what was that? Can you explain a little bit more of what that experience was like? Cause I think that's something I've talked to quite a few people about it, and there's more people than just me and you out there that have experienced that. But I think it's every time that happens, it almost gives people purpose.
It's hard to externalize it. I've only experienced it one other time, and that was last year. Just doing, we can talk about. I do jujitsu.
Okay, cool.
As a hobby for myself, we can talk about that a little bit. But it was just like a moment of intense clarity, where suddenly like the pain, like the mental anguish and the psychological pain I'd been feeling since I got out, it started to make it, and like literally in a moment it made sense. And there are specific moments across my journey, I guess, or my path since I left the military that stood out as abnormal to me.
Okay.
And when I look at what those moments are, everything we've already talked about basically go back to explain why they felt that way. And it was that sense of loss of purpose, that loss of connection to guys and girls who are like me.
Yeah.
That sense to serving something bigger than myself. And once I like had that moment and all those things gelled into one concise thought, I got it. It's like brighters became brighter and smell became smellier.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's what happened to me too. That like it's interesting to hear you say that though, because I mean, okay, full disclosure, everyone, I'm 21. But a lot of the people I know in my friend group, because we're all still so young, it hasn't happened for a lot of them yet. A lot of them seem close, but I think one of the difference, and I want to ask you this too, is one of the differences that, like, the reason why it happened for me, and it happened for I think one or two other of my friends as well, but the thing that made it happen was the massive self-awareness I was deployed, and that eventually just kind of caught up. Like, it was almost like a momentum. That's how I see it anyways. It's like momentum that builds, and then all of a sudden it just, like, all of a sudden it's just massive clarity instantly.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Like, are you very self-aware?
Yes, probably to a fault.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
And it so, like I said, like, it's happened once at jiu-jitsu, which was just like, it was a different experience, but it was an equally as impressive moment of clarity in my life. But the other time that it's happened is when my son was born. Like, now the first time with combat flags, like, when I had the idea, I thought, like, all right, this is it. And now I've had it once about something like very emotional to me, like very close and like life altering. And then I had it again at a sport that was just more about physical space, like relation to where I was in that time.
Okay. Yeah.
But knowing that it happens, I think, is a good marker of either slight changes in direction in life, or just markers of when you need to be aware of what's happening. I feel like there, of course, basically there's signals to just pay a little bit more attention than you are.
Yeah, no, I haven't thought of it like that. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's interesting to me. I really want to stay on this topic, but I'm gonna keep moving here. Okay, so actually, okay, yeah, this is something here. So you were in the corporate world, still are, but then you start combat flags. What is what are some of the differences or differences to you, that big differences to you, from the corporate world to doing your own thing, which is combat flags? Like, even if it's like it could be basic things like the amount of like, I gotta be my own boss, like, you could say that stuff. But if you can even get deeper than that, like, are there any differences, whether it be like you have more creative freedom, like you're like, I don't know what it may be for you, but
I haven't found any similarities between the two, which might be a more concise way to
summarize it. Yeah.
Like, one thing is it's pure creative outlet. There's a higher purpose behind it. I feel good when I do it. And the other one is, it's like, it's a job to me.
It's almost like, is it all almost like
it's a little cathartic.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to ask. Okay. So what are some of the challenges that, because I do know some people will be interested in this, that you personally faced with combat flags and starting it, coming from a marketing perspective, some of the stuff that you were challenged with starting combat flags on social media, especially because that's your main platform from the looks of it.
So I just kind of let social do its thing when I first started. It was a little bit of a different game than it is now. The algorithm wasn't quite what it is now. At that point, Instagram is still chronological order. They weren't feeding you things when they think you wanted to see it. The biggest thing for me at the time was being patient. Like, I'm not by nature a very patient person, and like, I felt like I had a really good idea, and everyone I had talked to about it like rallied behind it. But from like a sheer marketing perspective, the biggest issue I faced then, I would say, and I still face now, is around like time and time management. I've got a corporate job, I've got a family, and I've got combat flags. Combat flags is always going to come third on that list right now. I try and like fit it in pockets where I can during the day, and I wake up early so I can do it. We're quarantined right now here in North Carolina. So like, when I should have been eating lunch, like, I've got a new product right here that I knocked out, and I'm really pumped about. But really just finding the best way to allocate my time to be able to feed into combat flags in a way that keeps me passionate about it. So I talked with, do you watch Shark Tank?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there was a business on there a number of years ago called Bottle Breacher.
Okay.
Navy SEAL owned company. Basically, they take spent 50 cal rounds and they turn them into bottle openers.
Oh, that's sick. Okay.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
I I got hooked up with Eli, is the name of the owner of the company, and his wife Jen, late last year, and I ended up talking to Eli a couple times this year, and he made like a couple very hard hitting comments about the way I was doing things. The biggest of which was that the combat flags is just me. Like I just started outsourcing fulfillment to another company in January of this year. And when you're trying to do everything yourself, you can't do anything well. And what was suffering, I mean, Laren family and a corporate gig that was undergoing a lot of change at the time, Laren that, and you're basically just like going through the motions every day. Yeah. So for anybody who's looking to start a business, I wish I would have had this advice years ago. I probably wouldn't have listened to it, quite frankly. But for anybody who's either started a business, looking to start a business, look at how you can manage your time the best to do the things that you love and the things that you're good at, the things that bring value to your company. Because everything else. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, what are those things for you?
So for me, that's the marketing side of things.
Okay. Like I assume so.
And the writing, that's the stuff that I love to do. But like I was on Fox Business with Stuart Varney in New York on like Fox News in December.
Yep.
And I got crushed by that, man. Like I had an insane amount of orders, and I made, packaged, and fulfilled every order. And it killed me. I was up for 4 hours. I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning to do nothing but packaged orders for 3 weeks straight. That's all I did for 4 hours every day. And the business suffers at that point because you're just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
So now, like in my corporate thing, like that was undergoing its own huge transformation, and I'm on the strategic marketing team. They're doing stuff. So like I was dealing with that, and I'm just getting to the point now where I feel like I've got enough time and mental energy to put back into the company to start to right the ship a little bit to get it back to where I need it to be.
Yeah. And so you said you're good at the marketing side of things. Is that more so again, because I'm a marketer, so I understand the different factors that play into marketing, or the different faucets almost. Yep. But yours is more, you said you like writing a lot.
So the things that I love doing right now are, one, I've just recently got my blogs restarted. Got 3 up. 2 of the 3 are about, one is fully back underway. One actually will start tonight at 7:30.
Nice.
The other one is part of that mind map process, but I love just writing and sharing thoughts and experiences. And then email. The one thing that I hate, I love email. Like it's just such a good way to communicate with people.
Interesting.
And
okay.
I see I get a really good 2-way interaction with people via email when I send like emails out to my list.
Yep.
One thing I hate is social media advertising. Like I'm to the point now where I don't even want to screw around with it, because every time I think I get it, they change it. And then I'm just stuck testing and spending more money. And like, what's the point?
Yeah.
You should be incentivizing me to stay on your platform to continue to increase my ad spend. Instead, you're dicking me around every 2 weeks.
Yep. It's because that's something that we do. It's a lot of you're not the only one. Even okay. Full disclosure, agencies have a hard time keeping up with social media. Yeah. Like it's constantly changing. So if you're not on top of it, even if you are on top of it, you don't have enough time to test things out to see the algorithm. Like it changes way too fast. Because a test can take over a month, depending on the test now, but it can take over a month. But on the internet, they're updating things constantly. Like that's the new game.
I don't have the capacity to be able to do that. Like I now understand why people work with agencies. Mm-hmm. And when I can just as easily go out to X number of people who have opted into my email list and communicate with them directly and know that it's not getting put through a bajillion filters and getting served up to them 3 days later. Like, why?
You know,
I know I need to play the game, but I literally just don't have the time or the energy to put into it to do it the right way.
That makes sense. And so that's why you put most of your efforts in, because going back to what you said, it's focusing. If you were to give advice to someone starting out on social media for their business and everything, it's to focus on what you're good at, which for you, you said is writing, and and managing your time. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but managing your time around that skill set almost is like you're almost prioritizing prioritizing what you're made for. Like that's how you're wired and everything.
There's a book here, got it right here actually, that I've got a giant bookshelf back here called Traction, that I would recommend any small business owner or any entrepreneur pick up.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, it's about like getting a handle on your business. One, to just make sure that people see what you see in it, that you're putting your time in the right spots. And I read this freaking 2 years ago, and it didn't click until I had this conversation in January with Eli. So I would recommend that book if anybody's looking just to kind of get an understanding about how you can. And granted, like there's always going to be sweat equity in the beginning.
Yeah.
But you got to get past that spot so you don't burn out.
Yeah. By the way, we'll put that book in the description as well for people to find it there. Okay. So now the thing I've been actually waiting for is the Stop Soldier Suicide. Yeah. Okay. I have talked about this a little bit on the podcast. So for me personally, I've dealt with not a soldier, like not that, like I was never a soldier, don't get me wrong, but the whole suicide side of things, I understand that to the core. And so and that's something that clicked for me in January, and so that's why I like that you chose them too. Like it hits more home for me. But so explain why them though.
Yeah. So when I started Combat Flags, it was 2016. Around that time, like depending on like who you were friends with in your personal life, when you get on Facebook or Instagram, you see people knocking out 22 push-ups. And that's great. Like I love building awareness for things, but people weren't doing anything besides posting videos of themselves doing push-ups. Like they weren't making contributions to nonprofits. They weren't like reaching out to their buddies. They weren't doing anything. And that really irritated me actually to a point of like compulsion.
Okay.
Because, like I feel like some of us are just like driven to action, and you have to act within the means that you have available. Like I said, I'm not a mental health professional, and I'm not a social worker. So the way that I could help act was to support those who do those things.
Yeah.
And I had started to do a bunch of research, and there were some nationally known organizations at that time, and I'm not like disparaging them at all. They were doing great things, and they still are doing great things. They're helping people when they need it.
Yeah.
But when I found Stop Soldier Suicide, what stood out to me the most is that they, of course, helped somebody when they needed it. Either they self-nominated or a loved one nominated them and said, like, you guys got to get in here and help. Like, Dan's about to do something crazy, or he just seems really dark or distant, what have you.
Yeah.
But what stood out to me about Stop Soldier Suicide is they stay with that person for 2 years. So they help them when they need the help, and then they start to look at, like an onion. I hate this analogy, but they basically started to peel back the layers, and they look at financial situations. Are you having trouble with money? Okay, if you're having trouble with money, are you having trouble finding and keeping a job? Are you having trouble finding and keeping a job because you're not educated in the field that you want to be? Are you having issues at home? So they look at the person as an entire person and not just as a problem in a moment of time. And what that helps do is like they set that person up for success. Like they build a strong foundation under them. Yeah. To get them trending back in the right direction, and then empower them to do the work and to feel good about who they are. And if like a lot of these people, I'm sure, just like they've got either PTS or they've got something from deployment, just bad memories and bad thoughts, they help them work through that and just come to terms with what happened. And there's a therapy that's pretty popular and works well called CPT, cognitive processing therapy. Yep. Which just helps you reorient the way you think about things. Like they help them get that through the VA or through a private provider. But they see the person as a person, and that's what I love about them.
That's there's some people that organizations, companies, nonprofits. It's if you don't focus on the person, you know what? Let's take this into a business analogy here. If you don't focus on the end consumer, if you don't focus on the person, the amount of value that you're going to give to them is very limited at that point. But and that's why it's even when you started Combat Flags, I'm sure you had to to figure out what your audience wants to see and everything like that. And don't get me wrong, this is a whole different like ball game is business versus Stop Soldier Suicide, right. But the concept remains the same of you need to understand the human that you're trying to help. Mm-hmm. If you don't understand that, you're going to give them advice or things that aren't beneficial to them specifically.
Yeah. So my wife is an orthopedic trauma nurse. And so she's got her BSN, her bachelor's in nursing, and she's also got a bachelor's in public health.
Okay.
And the public health, this is actually a really good example. In the medical field, when you go see a doctor, the doctor treats the symptom. They don't look around the symptom to see what might be causing it.
Yeah.
That's what Stop Soldier Suicide does. They expand their purview. See if they can find out what the mitigating circumstances are that are causing that symptom to arise.
And they stick with them for 2 years, you said?
Yeah, it's a 2-year program.
Oh. So the amount of resources needed for them to deploy to help one person is quite significant then.
Yeah. So they're what they say is $1,300 helps one person for 2 years. And that's just by the way that they've got either their partnerships or their cost structures broken down.
Okay.
Which is fantastic. It's amazing to me that they can quantify it.
Yeah.
So like me as a guy and as a company. So like I said, I make a 50% donation from the original Combat Flag, Stop Soldier Suicide, and 10% from everything else, from t-shirts to hats and big flags, whatever.
Yep.
And I've donated $70,000 to them since I started Combat Flags.
Boy, that's awesome.
And I'm able to like here. Let's do the math real quick.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Pull up the trusty iPhone.
Yeah.
70,000. We'll just round it. Divided by 1,300. I've helped 54 people. Like through Combat Flags, me, my customers, we've helped 54 people who drastically need it for 2 years of their lives. And that's amazing to me.
Wow. Yeah. And that's where that high purpose too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible. Because I read it was 50, I believe it was 55,000. It's somewhere you wrote it down. I think it was either on your website or your LinkedIn, but you said it was, you've donated 55,000 at that time or around there. And now it's at 70,000.
Now it's at 70. Yeah. Okay.
So let me ask this. What are your end goals for Combat Flags? Where do you see it going? Any more partnership deals in the future that you potentially see? Like, what are your end goals for? Oh yeah, let's just leave it at that. What are your end goals for Combat Flags?
I am a terrible entrepreneur and business owner.
Okay.
And I actually don't have any end goals for it. It's an evolving process. So what started with just this little guy now has expanded into shirts and hats, and I do full 3x5 foot outdoor camo flags. Like I never would have, that was never on the horizon when I started Combat Flags. It was always just going to be this. What I would love to do, and one thing that I'm actively working on now, is sharing more stories. I want to put more faces to what military service looks like. And personally, I want to use my voice and my experience to help inspire other people. So I see Combat Flags, of course, staying with the stuff, like the cool products, but I want it to be more of, I want to be able to use Combat Flags to leverage my experience to share with others, so that they can either do more or that they can just think about where they are in life and course correct if needed.
So there is
also making like cool stuff that people like this that I've got right here. Like
By the way, I've been keeping an eye on the Marine Combat Flag that you have. I'm gonna butcher though. I don't know the exact name, but it's the larger one. However big those are.
3x5 foot.
Yeah. I love like, I'm not even kidding. For about probably a year and a half, 2 years, no, over 2 years now, about 3 years. I still haven't bought it because I want my parents or my family during Christmas time to get it. I mean, now though they haven't yet, so I'm just kind of like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy one anyways.
I'm just gonna do it.
But absolutely love it. And again, everything will be linked down in the description for people to go have a look at. Anyways, okay. So to kind of get back on track here, you obviously have a higher purpose in doing Combat Flag. And it's funny that you said that you're not a really good entrepreneur, because I think you're better than 98% of them out there right now. But
from a structure perspective.
yeah, but like you're still growing on Instagram. You don't, dude, you donated 70,000 already.
Yeah, it's amazing. I
Like,
love it.
Like you know what you're doing, and
Yeah.
it's fun. But I found it funny that you said that. It's like, okay, your perspective, like you may not be a good one, but man, most people can have done what you've done so far, and I want to give kudos to you. Like that's very impressive. And anyway, so let's end it there. Not end it, but we'll end the serious stuff there. We're gonna get into the 5-round questions now.
Okay.
So again, just to give you context on this, very simple questions. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it. If you do, no worries. But it's just supposed to be fast. There's 13.
Rapid fire.
What's that?
Rapid fire.
Yeah, rapid fire. Sorry, is there a term in the military? Because I have my best friend's in the Marines. He said it's accuracy by volume. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, are you ready to go? Are you okay?
Yeah.
There's 13 questions. After 13, we're done, and we'll get to the closing, and you can get on your quarantine life. Okay. First one: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Attaboy. What is one skill you really want to learn or develop?
I want to improve my handwriting.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. If you could have a 1-hour conversation with someone, who would it be with and why?
Oh, that's really hard.
Past or present?
We'll come back to this one. Let's come back to it.
Sounds good. Oh, my camera just... Oh. Okay, sorry. There we go. Okay. Biggest thing you learned transitioning into civilian life. We did already kind of talk about this before, but what's the biggest thing you learned?
To find a new mission.
Okay. The book that has impacted you the most.
Winds of War by Herman Wouk.
Herman Wouk.
It's historical fiction.
Oh, interesting.
Put it in the link. It's just the way it's written and the relationships between the characters and the perspectives that they each offer are enlightening.
Okay, we'll put that in the description for everyone. Top 3 things to do while in quarantine.
Exercise, eat, and stay clean.
Okay, simple enough. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To read people's minds.
Oh, why is that?
Because a lot of people don't say what they're actually thinking, and I would like to get to it.
Yep. Okay, I agree with that one. We already kind of covered this too, but I'll ask it again. Do you speak any other languages?
Filipino.
Okay. And what dialect again was that?
Tagalog.
Tagalog.
And
okay.
I picked up a handful of other dialects while I was there, but I wasn't fluent.
My buddy in the States, that's in the Marines, is Filipino, so he's learned to speak that too. Cool. I haven't asked this one before. Would you rather explore the deep sea or space?
Space.
And why is that?
I want to be weightless.
Huh?
I want to be weightless. I want to know what that feeling is like.
I've always wanted to do that too. It's on my bucket list. What is one thing that drives you?
My family.
Oh, really? Yep. So it's not your. It's sorry, I want to stay on this for a little bit longer. So it's not so much the purpose of the higher purpose you were saying. It's your family that drives you, or is it both?
It's both, but it's my family more now. Like now the combat flags is like doing its thing, and like I know it's doing well. Like that feels really good that that's sustainable.
Yeah.
But when I think about like what like gives me the most joy and satisfaction in life, that's my family. And when I feel that, I feel more driven to do more in other areas as well.
Okay, I like it. Do you have a secret talent?
No,
really?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Actually, here I'm really good at conceptualizing things. So this new thing that I've got right here, like I saw a general set of plans for it, and I thought about it over the course of last night, and today I just made it happen.
Dude, that's
I
actually
took my idea and I made it real.
That's impressive. Yeah, not a lot of people have that. Okay, so I guess you discovered something else. There's your secret talent.
There it is.
Okay, one thing that you want to try but haven't yet.
Oof. I want to try being more risky in certain areas of my life that I think could provide that could yield much happiness or like longer term success.
And what are some of the, do you have any things in mind of what the
Yeah,
things
so
would
one
be?
thing is like I'm a beach person. My wife, like we're a beach family. We love going to the coast and we're close to it.
Mm-hmm.
But our lives are here. So one thing I've been thinking about is investing in a property on the beach
Oh, okay.
that we would use as like an income and rental property.
Yeah.
But I would need to be more risky in how we manage our finances to do that.
Have you heard of Bigger Pockets?
No.
You should if you're looking at it investing in properties and everything, that's literally their whole channel and everything. Like they're yeah, if you want to learn a lot about that stuff, like they do rental properties, they do literally just houses, flippings, multifamily, like everything. They bring on the industry leaders in that and whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, that might be something that you're interested in.
Yeah, could be
Okay,
cool.
last question here. Your optimal place to be during a zombie apocalypse?
My house.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Honestly, it's well stocked with food and it's
Uh-huh.
well stocked with ammunition. So
Okay, so you'd use a gun in the zombie apocalypse then?
yeah, totally. And I've got really good vantage points from my house.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
So you're solid then. All right. Well,
Yeah.
Dan, I'm gonna probably mess this up, but Dan, not Berei. How do you say your last name? Berei. Sorry, not Berei. Berei. Thank you for coming on the show. That was the last question. With that being said, there is one other thing I do want to ask. Actually, is there anything that the community can do in helping soldiers, like the stop soldier suicide? Is there anything other than doing the push-up challenges and stuff like that that they can do?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to donate to these nonprofits, to these charities who are already doing the work. If you've got an extra buck, if you got an extra $5, just consider donating it to them because every little bit helps. I could tell you to go buy something from Combat Flags because I make a donation
Yeah.
anyway, but I'm not going to do that. If
Yeah.
you're going to buy something, just like give them your money.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
the people who are doing the hard work. Conversely, if you've got friends who are in the military, or if you are a veteran or are in the military, especially during times like these where we're all socially distancing ourselves and isolating, just be a good friend and reach out. There's a million ways to connect, from FaceTime to Facebook Messenger to like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Stay present, even though that we can't physically be together.
Yeah.
Because times like these, for people who are suffering in some way, it's going to exacerbate what's already going on. So just be a good human.
Yeah.
Reach out.
Bottom line, being a good human.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close this here that we didn't cover?
If you want to check out Combat Flags, the website is combatflags.com.
Okay.
And you can find me on Instagram at combat_flags. And on Facebook, it's just Combat Flags.
Perfect.
I suck at Twitter, but Twitter is also combat_flags.
Okay, perfect. And that'll all be on the screen and in the description as well. Anyways, yeah, thank you for coming on the show. I personally love this discussion. I think we covered a lot. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, we will, if you guys have any other questions, you can DM him at, again, Instagram, I believe he said was combat_flags. Check out his website, everyone, and also check out Stop Soldier Suicide. It's a very, I looked into it as well. It's an amazing cause. Yeah, so everyone go do that, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Take care.